I just introduced the formula for present value and future value. The two formulas we can use for other purpose instead of just calculating present value or future value of a cash flow. For both formulas, future value and present value, it includes these four factors: the future value, present value, interest rate per period, number of periods. These four factors in that equation. So if we know three of them, we can figure out the one which is unknown. Actually, we have already have the formula for these two values. Next, we are going to determine when interest rate is unknown or when the number of periods is unknown. We are given $500 now, or the present value, or $605 by the end of year 2, which represents future value. Since we are given 2 years, so that's number of periods too. So we are asked, what's the interest per period, or what is the annual interest rate? So we can use either future value or present value equation. I just use a future value equation. First, we convert this equation to this. Okay, so this is the future value factor. We can look up the value from the table. We just need to calculate the value of this by using 605 divided by 500. Based on the example, we can also use the present value equation. The present value equals future value multiply present value factor. It equals PV divided by FV equals to this, which is the present value factor. These two factors have different value. You also need to look up different tables. In this example, we first calculate the value of this factor by using present value divided by future value. So the value 0.82645. And then we look up the table present value factor. Since we know the period was 2, then we check which number is close to the value we calculate. And we find this number located here, which appears in the column 10%. Then we know the interest per period is 10%. Or we can use this formula by calculating the value of this 605 divided by 500. It equals to 1.21. Then we have the future value factor table here on slide 10. 2 periods, factor was 1.21. Again, 10%. And you will find the future value factor all greater than 1. The reason is future value is defined as this. This is always greater than 1 under assumption the interest rate is greater than 0. So both formulas are good to solve this problem. Similarly, we can also determine the number of periods if the interest is given. We're given the present value, PV, future value, FV, and also the interest rate per period, 10%. Since 10% is compounded annually, so this represents the annual interest rate. Then we will determine number of periods. Again, we also use the formula present value equals future value multiply present value factor. So present value divided by future value is a present value factor. This factor is determined by these two factors. So 10,000 divided by 16,000, 0.625. Since we use present value equation, we should look up the present value factor. So the value of the factor was 0.625. We are given the interest 10%. We just look at the number in this column. Finally, we find this one is very close to the value we calculate. And it locates just on row 5. We can tell the number of periods was 5. Since the interest was compounded annually for 10%, so 5 also represents 5 years.